The house at 1247 Maple Street stood out from the others with its immaculate appearance. The two-story colonial-style building with its neatly trimmed lawn and petunia beds seemed to embody the American dream. Neighbors often pointed to the Hale family as an example of what to strive for. At 45, Gareth Hale was considered one of Bellwood's most respected businessmen. His construction company, Hale Construction, was involved in home renovations and small commercial projects. Over 20 years of work, he earned a reputation as an honest contractor who never missed a deadline or overcharged. Gareth regularly attended city council meetings, sponsored the local high school baseball team, and took his usual seat in the front row of St. Matthew's Baptist Church every Sunday. Neighbors described him as a model family man who never raised his voice and was always ready to help. When his elderly neighbor Martha Collins broke her leg, Gareth personally came and installed a ramp to her porch free of charge. Such actions reinforced his reputation as a caring member of the community. His wife Grace worked as an administrator at Bellwood High School. Colleagues knew her as a quiet but competent woman who never missed a day of work. At 43, she remained attractive, although in recent years she had become noticeably more withdrawn. At school events, Grace preferred to keep to herself, only occasionally participating in general conversations. The couple had 2 children. Their eldest son, Jacob, 21, was studying engineering at Ohio State University and only came home for holidays. Their youngest daughter, Erica, 19, was enrolled in the psychology department at Bellwood Community College. Erica had always been different from her peers. In elementary school, her teachers noted her advanced intellect and tendency to be solitary. She preferred to spend her time at home with books rather than playing with her classmates. Her teenage years were relatively uneventful. Good grades, no serious conflicts with her parents, although she had virtually no close friends. Teachers noticed the girl's unusual interests. Erica often ordered psychology books online, preferring to read serious literature about family relationships and trauma at home. Amazon couriers regularly delivered book orders to the Halleman's house, which became a familiar sight for the neighbors. There were unwritten rules in the family that everyone accepted as a given. Erica never brought friends home, did not participate in extracurricular activities, and avoided school events. Gareth explained this as a peculiarity of his daughter's character. She was an introvert and preferred the home environment. Those around her saw nothing strange in this. However, some details of family life alarmed attentive observers. Reverend David Wilson of the Baptist Church noticed Erica's unusual behavior during Sunday services. The girl always sat between her parents, but when Gareth touched her shoulder or arm, she visibly tensed up. Such a reaction seemed unnatural for a girl her age. In the summer of 2025, there were noticeable changes in the family's behavior. Erica became even more withdrawn, rarely leaving the house unless absolutely necessary. When she met neighbors, she would just nod in response to their greetings and quickly hide behind the front door. Those around her noticed that she had lost a lot of weight and began wearing long-sleeved clothes even in the hottest weather. That same summer, regular book deliveries to the Hale family home stopped. Erica no longer placed online orders. Instead, Gareth began to monitor his daughter's internet activity more closely, checking her browser history and limiting her time on the computer. His fatherly attention to his daughter in public intensified. Gareth began personally escorting Erica to college every morning, even though the distance was only 2 kilometers. He often appeared on campus under the pretext of business meetings. His company was actually doing minor repairs there. College security guards noticed that Mr. Hale was more interested in who his daughter was associating with than in actual work issues. Family dynamics became increasingly tense. Jacob practically stopped coming home even during vacations, preferring to stay on campus or with friends. When he did come home, the atmosphere in the house became even more oppressive. Former classmates recalled that Jacob complained about his father's excessive control over his sister, but did not disclose any details. Grace immersed herself deeper and deeper in her work. She stayed late at school, took on extra shifts, and volunteered at every possible event. She spent as little time at home as possible, preferring to garden or read alone. Colleagues noticed that Grace had become distant. She no longer talked about her family and avoided conversations about her personal life. In the fall of 2025, Erica signed up for counseling at the college's psychological services. Officially, it was part of a career guidance program for freshmen, but it soon became clear that the girl needed more serious help. Dr. Sarah Clinton, a psychologist at the Student Center, immediately noticed the warning signs. Erica showed classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress, avoidance behavior, increased anxiety, and sleep problems. She spoke cautiously and reluctantly, often falling silent mid-sentence and constantly glancing at the door. During the sessions, Erica mentioned family problems and said she felt trapped. When asked for details, she became withdrawn. At the third meeting, she mentioned her father for the first time, describing him as overprotective and not understanding boundaries. When the psychologist asked her to explain these words, Erica burst into tears and asked to end the session. Meanwhile, Gareth's control over his daughter at home was increasing. He demanded detailed reports on every hour she spent at college, checked her phone, and looked through all her messages. When Grace tried to defend her daughter, her husband explained his behavior as concern for her safety. In a modern world full of dangers and bad influences, the neighbors accepted these explanations. In the conservative community of Bellwood, such parental control did not seem unusual. Many even approved of Gareth's responsible approach to parenting. However, some details went beyond normal parental concern. Neighbors noticed that Gareth often stood at his daughter's window, watching the street. He knew the schedules of all the local teenagers and could tell exactly who was coming home and at what time. Such close attention to the neighborhood children was alarming. By the end of September, the tension in the Hale family home had reached a critical point. Erica began skipping classes at college, spending entire days in her room. Grace practically stopped talking to her husband, limiting herself to only necessary everyday communication. Gareth, on the other hand, became demonstratively friendly and sociable in public, as if compensating for his domestic problems with increased charm. The last time the entire Hale family appeared in public together was on Sunday, September 30th, at church. Reverend Wilson noticed changes in their usual behavior. Erica sat at the very end of the pew, as far away from her father as possible. Grace stared at the floor throughout the service. Gareth kept looking around, as if he were looking for someone or hiding from someone. That same evening, neighbors heard loud voices coming from the Hale family home. The sounds came from the living room, but it was impossible to make out the words. The argument lasted about an hour, then the house fell silent. The next day, Erica did not show up for class at college. When Dr. Clinton called the house, Gareth answered and said that his daughter was sick. After that, no one in the Heilman family answered the psychologist's calls. Something was happening in the perfect house on Maple Street, but no one yet suspected how terrible the truth hidden behind the facade of the model family would turn out to be. October 2025 brought the first cold spell of autumn to Bellwood. The leaves on Maple Street were turning golden and crimson, but the atmosphere at 1247 Maple Street was growing increasingly gloomy. Erica hadn't been to college for a week. Dr. Sarah Clinton tried to contact the family several times, but each time Gareth answered the phone, repeating the same thing. His daughter had the flu and needed rest. The psychologist knew something was wrong. In the 3 weeks she had been working with the girl, she had noticed the classic signs of deep psychological trauma. On October 8th, Erica unexpectedly showed up at Dr. Clinton's office without an appointment. The girl looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, a nervous tick in the corner of her mouth, hands that she couldn't keep still. She sat on the very edge of the chair, ready to jump up and run away at any moment. "I'm sorry for coming without an appointment," Erica said quietly without looking up. "I don't have much time. My father thinks I'm at the infirmary." Dr. Clinton carefully closed the office door and sat down across from the girl. Over the years of practice, she had learned to recognize the signs of extreme distress, and they were all flashing red in Erica's behavior. Tell me what's going on, the psychologist said gently. Erica was silent for several minutes, clenching and unclenching her fists. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with despair and a kind of hopeless determination. I can't live like this anymore, she whispered, but I don't know how to get out of it. I can't tell my mom. She won't believe me. Or she might believe me, but it would destroy our family. Erica, if someone is hurting you, don't say that out loud, the girl interrupted sharply. Please, I just need to know what will happen if I tell someone about something terrible, something that's happening at home. Dr. Clinton explained the principles of confidentiality and the circumstances under which a psychologist is required to report potential danger. Erica listened attentively, asking clarifying questions about the procedures, who would be notified, and how quickly. What if that someone is an important figure in the city? What if everyone trusts him? Erica asked, her voice trembling. The law is the same for everyone, Dr. Clinton replied, though her heart sank as she realized where the conversation was going. Erica spent another half-hour in the office, but said nothing more specific. She asked about support groups, about opportunities to live separately from her family, about financial aid for students. When the time was up, she got up and headed for the door. Dr. Clinton, she turned around at the threshold. If I disappear, if something happens to me, please remember our conversation. The psychologist wanted to stop her, but Erica had already run out of the office. At home, the atmosphere was getting more tense every day. Grace finally stopped ignoring the obvious. Something terrible was happening to her daughter. The girl hardly left her room, ate very little, and flinched at every sound. When Grace tried to talk to her, Erica answered in monosyllables or simply remained silent. Erica's behavior around her father was particularly disturbing. Previously, the girl had simply avoided closeness with Gareth, but now she was clearly afraid of him. At the sound of his footsteps in the hallway, Erica froze like a cornered animal. If her father came into her room even just to say goodnight, the girl would press herself against the wall and not respond to his words. Grace tried to talk to her husband, but the conversation quickly turned into a one-sided accusation. You work too much, Gareth said, cutting vegetables for dinner with uncharacteristic aggression. Our daughter needs her mother's attention, and you're always at school. Erica is afraid of you, Grace said bluntly. I see how she reacts when you're around. Gareth stopped, the knife frozen in his hand. For a few seconds, there was an ominous silence in the kitchen. She's going through a transitional phase, he finally said, without turning to his wife. Girls that age distance themselves from their fathers. It's normal. She's 19, Gareth. What transitional phase? Her husband turned around, and Grace saw something in his eyes that made her step back, a coldness she had never noticed before. Don't meddle in things you don't understand, he said quietly. I take better care of my family than you do. After that conversation, Grace began to watch her husband more closely. She noticed that Gareth knew too many details about Erica's daily routine. When she got up, when she went to bed, what she ate, what websites she visited. It went beyond normal parental concern. One night, Grace woke up and found her husband wasn't in bed. She quietly went downstairs and saw the light on in the living room. Gareth was sitting at the computer, looking at something on the screen. When Grace got closer, he quickly closed the browser window. What are you doing? She asked. Working, checking orders for tomorrow. But Grace had noticed that it wasn't work documents on the screen, but social media. What's more, she saw photos of Erica, but not the family photos that parents usually post. These were photos taken secretly. Erica at college, Erica in a cafe, Erica walking down the street. Are you watching her? Grace couldn't hide the horror in her voice. Gareth slowly turned to his wife. There was no trace of embarrassment or guilt in his eyes. I'm protecting her, he said. The world is full of dangers. Parents need to know where their children are. She's a grown woman. She's my daughter, Gareth's voice hardened. "And as long as she lives in my house, I will know her every move." Grace realized it was useless to argue. What's more, for the first time in years of marriage, she felt fear toward her own husband. Meanwhile, Erica was trying to find a way to escape from home. She secretly researched information about student dorms, the possibility of transferring to another college, and student jobs. But her every move was monitored. Gareth checked her browser history, read her messages, and tracked her calls. On October 15th, an incident occurred that showed how serious the situation was. Erica met her classmate Ryan Taylor at a cafe near the college. It was a chance encounter. The young man simply invited her for coffee after her psychology class. They talked for an hour, discussing the upcoming exam. When Erica returned home, her father was waiting for her in the hallway. "Where were you?" he asked, sounding deceptively calm. "At college." "In class. Class ended at 3. It's now 4:30, Erica realized he knew. Somehow, Gareth had been tracking her movements. "I was at the library," she tried to lie. Gareth took out his phone and showed her a photo. In the picture, Erica was sitting in a cafe across from Ryan Taylor. "Who is this boy?" Her father's voice turned cold. "Just a classmate. We were discussing school. You're lying to me." Gareth moved closer, and Erica instinctively backed up against the wall. "I won't let you date boys. You're too young to understand their intentions." "I'm 19. "You're as old as I say you are," Gareth snapped, and there was such fury in his voice that Erica cringed. "Go up to your room. Leave your phone here." Erica handed him her cell phone with trembling hands and ran upstairs. She locked herself in her room and only then allowed herself to cry. Grace watched the scene from the kitchen, and a chill of horror ran down her spine. Her husband's behavior was beyond reasonable. He wasn't a strict father. He was a tyrant who controlled every aspect of his daughter's life. That evening, Grace tried to talk to Erica. She went up to her daughter's room and knocked softly on the door. "Erica, it's Mom. Can I come in?" The door was locked. After a few minutes, the girl opened it but did not let her mother in. "What's going on between you and your father?" Grace asked directly. Erica looked at her mother with eyes full of pain and despair. For a few seconds, it seemed that she was ready to tell the truth. But then the girl shook her head. "Nothing. He's just very strict. Erica, if he's doing something wrong. Mom, please." The girl's voice was full of pleading. "Don't pry. It's better for everyone this way." The door closed, leaving Grace in the hallway, feeling completely helpless. The next day, Erica skipped class again. Dr. Clinton received a message from the college administration that the girl could be expelled for truancy. The psychologist decided to take action and called home. This time, Grace answered the phone. "Mrs. Hale, this is Dr. Clinton from the college. I need to talk to you about Erica." Grace agreed to meet, but asked that it not be at home. They met at a small cafe in the city center. "Your daughter is in serious distress," the psychologist began. "She is showing signs of trauma and is in dire need of help." Grace listened, clutching her coffee cup. When Dr. Clinton finished, she said quietly, "I know that something is wrong. But she won't talk to me. And my husband?" Grace paused, searching for the right words. "He's become very controlling, too controlling. Mrs. Hale, if there is domestic violence in your family..." "He doesn't hit us," Grace said quickly. "Gareth has never used physical force." The psychologist looked closely at the woman. "Abuse isn't always physical." Those words hit home. Grace lowered her head, and Dr. Clinton saw tears running down her cheeks. "I don't know what to do," Grace whispered. "He's my husband, the father of my children. Everyone in town respects him. Who will believe me?" "We'll find a way to help Erica," the psychologist promised. "But we need her consent to do that." When Grace returned home, the house was empty. Gareth had left for the construction site, and Erica was in her room. Grace went upstairs and knocked on her daughter's door again. "Erica, I spoke to your psychologist. She wants to help the door opened." Erica stood in the doorway, and for the first time in a long time, there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Do you believe me?" the girl asked. "I believe that your father is hurting you," Grace said. "I don't know exactly how, but I can see what's happening." Erica stepped forward and hugged her mother. It was the first hug between them in months. "Mom," the girl whispered in her ear, "I'll tell you the truth. But not today. I need time to find the strength." Grace held her daughter tightly, feeling that they were on the verge of something terrible but inevitable. That evening, Gareth came home in an unusually gloomy mood. He hardly spoke during dinner, but Grace could feel his intense gaze on her. When Erica went upstairs to her room, Gareth suddenly spoke up. "Someone is interested in our family." Asking questions, Grace tried to remain calm. "What kind of questions?" "About how we raise our children." "About our family relationships." Gareth looked intently at his wife. "I hope you understand that family matters should remain within the family." The threat was clear, though not explicitly stated. Grace nodded, but in her heart she had made up her mind. It was time to act before it was too late. Monday, October 21st, began with an unusual silence in the Hale family home. Gareth left for the construction site earlier than usual, leaving a note saying he would be back late. For the first time in 2 weeks, Erica came down for breakfast and sat across from her mother. "Mom," she said quietly, without looking up from her plate, "I'm ready to talk." Grace put down her coffee cup. Her hands were shaking. She knew she was about to hear something that would change their lives forever. "But not here," Erica continued, "and not today. Tomorrow." When Dad's not home, the girl looked up, and Grace saw a determination in her eyes that she hadn't seen in a long time. "I'm meeting with Dr. Clinton today. I'll tell her everything, and then I'll tell you. But you have to promise me that you'll listen to the end without interrupting." Grace nodded, even though fear was tightening her throat. "I promise." Erica got up from the table and suddenly walked over to her mother, hugging her tightly. "Mom, whatever I tell you, remember that it's not your fault. You didn't know. You couldn't have known." At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Erica arrived at Dr. Clinton's office. The psychologist immediately noticed the changes in the girl. She still looked exhausted, but her posture showed a new determination. "Dr. Clinton," Erica began, sitting down on the edge of the chair, "I want to tell you the truth. The whole truth. But first I need to know, what will happen after that?" The psychologist explained the procedures again, emphasizing that if a crime was reported, she would be required to notify the appropriate authorities. "It's a crime," Erica said quietly. "What's been happening in our home for several years." The next hour was one of the most difficult of Dr. Clinton's career. Erica spoke slowly, with long pauses, often stopping to gather her strength. The story began when the girl was 15 years old. "At first, it was just hugs that lasted too long," Erica said, looking out the window. "Then there were touches that felt wrong. He said it was normal, that this was how fathers showed love to their daughters." Gradually, the situation worsened. Gareth convinced his daughter that they had a special bond, that no one would understand their relationship. He instilled in her that telling anyone about what was happening would destroy the family and hurt her mother. "He said that Mom was too weak to handle the truth," Erica continued. "That if I told her, she would get sick or even die of grief. I believed him. I was 15 and didn't know it was wrong." By the time she was 17, Gareth's manipulation was relentless. He used emotional pressure, subtle threats, and false displays of concern to maintain control over his daughter. He led her to believe that their situation was her choice, convincing her it was something like real love. "When I turned 18, I realized I could leave." Erica's voice became firmer. "But he said that if I tried to tell anyone or leave home, he would do the same thing to other girls, to the neighbors' children. He knew where they went to school. When they came home, Dr. Clinton took notes, fighting professional shock. The case was worse than she had imagined. It wasn't just incest. It was a sophisticated system of psychological control and coercion. "Erica," she said gently, "you are very brave to tell me this, but now we have to act." "I know," the girl nodded. "I can't live like this anymore. But I'm afraid for my mom, and I'm afraid he'll kill me if he finds out." These words made the psychologist even more alert. "Has he threatened you with physical violence?" "Not directly, but lately he's been different, more aggressive. When I tried to resist last month, he grabbed me by the throat. Not hard, but enough to show he could do more." Dr. Clinton realized that the situation was critical. "Erica, I have to report this to the police, and we need to ensure your safety." "He's working late today," said the girl. "I'll tell my mom tonight. And tomorrow morning, we can go to the police together." The psychologist wanted to insist on immediate intervention, but she understood that Erica needed her mother's support. "Okay, but if anything changes, if you feel in danger, call me immediately. Anytime." Erica left the office with Dr. Clinton's cell phone number and a plan of action for the next day. For the first time in years, she felt that a way out was possible. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Gareth Hale was ending his workday in a very gloomy mood. That morning, he had received a call from Robert Green, a college security guard with whom Gareth was friends. "Gareth, I thought you should know," Robert said. "Your wife met with your daughter's psychologist last week at a cafe on Main Street. The conversation seemed serious." The news exploded in Gareth's head like a bomb. If Grace had talked to Erica's psychologist, then the secret was in jeopardy. And if the secret came out, Gareth spent the day in a state of controlled panic. He knew that his carefully constructed world could collapse at any moment. His reputation, his business, his position in society, all of it would disappear if the truth came out. But worst of all was the prospect of prison. By evening, he had made a decision. He had to take preventive action. Gareth returned home earlier than he had promised in his note. The only light in the house was in the kitchen, where Grace was washing the dishes after dinner. Erica was in her room. "Where were you last week?" he asked his wife without preamble. Grace turned around, drying her hands with a towel. She saw something in her husband's eyes that made her instinctively retreat to the sink. "At work," she replied. "Don't lie to me." Gareth's voice became quieter, which was even more threatening than shouting. "You were seen at a cafe with Erica's psychologist." Grace realized there was no escape. "Yes, I met with Dr. Clinton. She's concerned about Erica." "What did you talk about?" "About how our daughter needs help. About how things aren't going well in our family." Gareth moved closer. "What exactly did you tell her?" "The truth. That you control Erica too much. That she's afraid of you." "What else?" Grace felt she was on the verge of something terrible. Her instincts told her that the next words would determine their future. "Nothing else," she said. "I don't know what else there is to tell." Gareth looked closely at his wife, trying to determine if she was lying. Then he turned and walked toward the stairs. "I'll talk to Erica," he said over his shoulder. "Gareth, don't." She's tired, but her husband was already climbing the stairs. Grace remained in the kitchen, sensing disaster approaching. Gareth knocked on his daughter's door and entered without waiting for a response. Erica was sitting at her desk with a textbook, but he could see that she wasn't reading. The book had been open to the same page for half an hour. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. Erica turned around, and Gareth saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. Fearlessness. "Yes, we do," she agreed, getting up from her seat. "I have something to tell you." Her father was alarmed. His daughter's tone was completely new. Firm, decisive. "I'm not going to keep quiet anymore," Erica continued. "Tomorrow, I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them everything you've done to me over the last 4 years. Gareth felt the ground slipping away from under his feet. Erica, you don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly well. You're a criminal. What you did was rape, and I won't let you continue. No one will believe you, Gareth said, trying to take control of the situation. I'm a respected man in this town. I have an impeccable reputation, and you're just an upset girl with fantasies. I have proof, Erica said, taking a small tape recorder out of her desk drawer. I've been recording our conversations for the last 2 months. Gareth's face turned pale. Give that to me. No. Erica clutched the recorder in her hand. This is a copy. The originals are already in a safe place. She was bluffing. There were several recordings, and they were all stored in her room, but Gareth didn't know that. Erica, think about your family. He tried to change tactics. Mom, this will kill her. Mom already knows something is wrong, and she will support me. She will hate you when she finds out the truth. She will blame you for destroying our family. You destroyed the family the day you first touched me. Gareth realized that persuasion wasn't working. His daughter was determined, and nothing could stop her. His panic turned to cold fury. You're not going to the police, he said quietly. Try to stop me. Erica, if you do this, it won't just be us who suffer. I know about all the children in the neighborhood, where they live, where they go to school, when they're home alone. Trouble could happen to anyone. The girl turned pale. Are you threatening the children? I'm protecting my family. At that moment, Erica realized that her father was capable of anything. His eyes showed the desperation of a cornered predator. Get out of my room, she said, trying to keep her voice firm. Gareth turned silently and left, closing the door behind him. Erica immediately locked herself in and took out her phone to call Dr. Clinton. But the phone was dead. She had forgotten to put it on charge. Downstairs, Gareth found his wife in the living room. Grace was reading a book, but he could see that she hadn't turned a page in a long time. What did you talk to Erica about today? Nothing in particular. Just gave her some support. Grace. Gareth sat down next to his wife on the sofa. Our daughter is sick. She has mental health issues. She makes up stories that could destroy our family. Grace looked at her husband. What stories? She thinks there's something inappropriate going on between us. It's nonsense, of course, but if she goes to the doctors with these accusations... Is it true? Grace interrupted him. Is what she thinks true? Gareth paused for too long. The silence was enough. My God, Grace whispered, recoiling from her husband. My God, it's true. Grace, let me explain. How long? The woman's voice trembled. How long have you been involved with our daughter? It's not what you think. We had a special connection. She understood. Grace jumped up from the sofa. She was only 15. She was just a child. She agreed. She was a child, Grace cried out. You betrayed your own daughter. Gareth stood as well, and the same cold fury that Erica had once seen in his eyes returned. You don't understand, he said quietly. No one understands. Grace ran for the phone, but Gareth was faster. He grabbed her arm. You're not calling anyone, he said. We'll deal with this within the family. Let go of me. Grace's voice was filled with terror. I can't let you destroy everything I've built over the years. At that moment, Grace realized that the husband she had known for 20 years had never existed. Standing before her was a stranger, a dangerous man. Upstairs, Erica could hear her parents' muffled voices. She found the charger and plugged in her phone, waiting for it to turn on. She needed to contact Dr. Clinton immediately. But when the phone turned on, it showed several missed calls from an unknown number and one message. If you want your mother to stay alive, come down to the living room, alone. Erica looked out the window of her room. Only her father's car was parked in the driveway. But in the neighbor's yard, she noticed a figure dressed in dark clothes. The girl's heart began to beat faster. Her father was not alone. The clock on Erica's bedside table showed 11:47 p.m. when she heard cautious footsteps in the hallway. The girl lay in the dark, fully clothed, ready to run at any moment. Her phone was charged and lay next to Dr. Clinton's number on the screen. The footsteps stopped at her door. Then there was a soft knock. "Erica?" Her father's voice sounded deceptively gentle. "I need to talk to you." The girl didn't answer, hoping he would go away. But the doorknob slowly turned. The lock she thought was secure didn't work. Gareth had removed it a year ago under the pretext of safety. Her father entered the room, closing the door behind him. He was holding something in his hands that Erica couldn't make out in the dark. "I know you're awake," he said, approaching the bed. "We need to talk about everything." Erica reached for her phone, but Gareth was faster. With one swift movement, he knocked the device out of her hands, and it crashed to the floor. "We could have been happy," he continued, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "You, me, Mom. But you decided to ruin everything." "Dad, please," Erica began, but he interrupted her. "You want to destroy our family, send me to prison, disgrace us in front of the whole town." In the moonlight streaming through the window, Erica saw that her father was holding a pillow from the living room sofa. "I can't let that happen," Gareth said quietly. Erica tried to jump out of bed, but her father was stronger. He pinned her to the mattress, pressing down with all his weight. "It won't take long," he whispered, bringing the pillow to her face. "It will look like an accident." An asthma attack. But Erica had never had asthma, and Gareth knew it. He was just saying whatever would help him do what he was doing. She struggled desperately, trying to push her father away, but he was twice her weight. The pillow covered her face, cutting off her air supply. "I'm sorry," Gareth whispered, pressing the pillow down harder. "But I have no choice." Erica tried to scream, but the sounds were muffled by the fabric. Her lungs burned from lack of oxygen. She scratched her father's arms, leaving deep gashes, but he did not loosen his grip. The girl's last thoughts were not of her own death, but of her mother. She hoped that Grace would be able to go on living, knowing the truth. After 7 minutes, the struggle ceased. Gareth held the pillow for another 2 minutes, making sure his daughter was dead. Then, he carefully removed it and looked at the motionless body. Erica Hale, who would have turned 20 in a month, was no longer breathing. Gareth spent the next hour preparing the scene. He moved his daughter into a more natural position, took the pillow back to the living room, and gathered the pieces of the broken phone. Then he went downstairs, where Grace was sitting in the kitchen, bound and gagged. "It's over," he said to his wife as he untied her. "Erica won't be a problem anymore." Grace looked at him in horror. "What have you done?" "What I had to do to protect our family." When Grace understood the meaning of his words, she tried to run to the stairs, but Gareth grabbed her arm. "She's dead," he said bluntly. "And if you don't want to join her, you'll do everything I say." At 6:23 a.m., Grace's screams woke the neighbors. The woman was standing in her garden in her nightgown, screaming like a wounded animal. Martha Collins was the first to run out of her house and try to calm her neighbor down. "Grace, what happened?" "She's dead," the woman sobbed. "My girl is dead." Martha immediately called 911. An ambulance was the first to arrive on the scene, followed by a Bellwood police patrol car. Officer James Connor went up to Erica's bedroom and discovered the girl's body. Gareth met the police in a state that appeared to be shock. He explained that he had been awakened by his wife's screams and had found his daughter dead in her bed. "We think it was her heart," he told Officer Connor. "She's been having trouble breathing lately." The paramedic who arrived, David Martinez, examined the body and found no obvious signs of violence. The girl was lying in a natural position, with no signs of struggle on her face. "Possibly cardiac arrest," he told the police officer. An autopsy will be necessary to determine the exact cause. By 8 a.m., the news of Erica Hale's death had spread throughout Bellwood. Neighbors gathered around the house, offering their condolences and bringing flowers. Reverend Wilson came to support the family. Detective Michael Torres arrived at the scene at 9:15 a.m. At 38, he had been with the Bellwood Police Department for 15 years and had seen many deaths. But something about this case seemed strange to him. Torres was a methodical man who did not like to jump to conclusions. He carefully examined the girl's room, noting that everything looked too neat for a place of sudden death. "Officer Connor," he said to the patrolman, "who found the body first?" "Her mother. She said she went to wake her daughter and found her dead." Torres nodded and went downstairs to talk to the family. Gareth was sitting in the living room, hugging his wife. Grace was crying, but the detective noticed that she was avoiding looking at her husband. "Mr. Hale," Torres began, "tell me about last night. When did you last see your daughter?" "At dinner. Around 7, Gareth replied. Then she went up to her room to do her homework." "How was she feeling?" "Normal, maybe a little tired." Torres turned to Grace. "Mrs. Hale, did your daughter have any health problems?" The woman looked up with tear-filled eyes. "No, Erica was healthy. My husband told the police she had trouble breathing," she added quietly. Gareth glanced quickly at his wife. "I meant she sometimes complained of feeling tired." Torres noticed the exchange of glances. In his experience, families grieving a loss usually supported each other rather than contradicting each other in their statements. "Mr. Hale, what were you doing last night after dinner?" "I was working in my office, reviewing project documents." "Until what time?" "Until 11, maybe later." "Can your wife confirm that?" Gareth paused for a second. "Grace went to bed early. She had a headache." Torres turned to the woman. "Mrs. Hale?" Grace looked at her husband, then at the detective. "Yes, I had a headache." But she did not confirm that her husband had been working in his office. Torres made a mental note of this. "I want to talk to each of you separately," said the detective. "It's standard procedure." Gareth began to protest. "Detective, we just lost our daughter. Can't you wait?" "Unfortunately, no. The sooner we gather information, the better." Torres started with Grace, taking her to the kitchen. The woman looked extremely upset, but not just from grief. The detective sensed that she was hiding something. "Mrs. Hale, tell me about your daughter. How has she been feeling lately?" "Erica was troubled by something," Grace said after a pause. "She became withdrawn and started skipping classes at college." "Do you know why?" Grace paused again. "She talked about family problems, that she felt trapped." "What family problems?" "We had just started talking about it. Erica was going to tell me more, but..." Grace didn't finish her sentence, but Torres understood. The daughter was going to open up to her mother, but she died before she could. "Mrs. Hale, did your daughter see a psychologist at college?" "Yes, Dr. Clinton. Did you meet with her?" Grace nodded. "She said Erica was in serious distress, that she needed help." "What kind of help?" Dr. Clinton didn't specify. She just said that Erica was hiding something. Torres took notes. The picture was becoming more interesting. The girl was distressed, hiding family problems, but suddenly died just as she was about to tell the truth. "Mrs. Hale, how was your daughter's relationship with her father?" Grace raised her head sharply. Fear flashed in her eyes. "Normal," she said too quickly, "like all fathers and daughters." But Torres noticed that the woman's hands were shaking and that she was again avoiding a direct answer. When the detective returned to the living room to talk to Gareth, he found the man standing at the window watching the neighbors gathered on the street. "Mr. Hale, please sit down." Gareth sat down but remained tense. "Detective, I hope this won't take long. My wife is in shock. Tell me about your relationship with your daughter." "We were very close. Erica was always a daddy's girl. Close in what sense? Gareth flinched, as if the question had hurt him. In the usual sense. I took care of her, protected her. Young girls need protection these days. From what exactly? From bad influences, drugs, bad company. Torres nodded. Was your daughter seeing anyone? No. She was too young for a serious relationship. She was 19. Erica was immature for her age. She needed time. The detective noted that Gareth spoke of his daughter in the past tense, even though she had died only a few hours ago. People in shock usually had not yet accepted the reality of their loss. Mr. Hale, you said you worked in your office until 11. What exactly were you doing? Checking estimates. Preparing documents for a new project. Can anyone confirm that? Phone calls, emails? Gareth paused. No, I was working with paper documents. Torres knew that most construction companies had long since switched to digital document management. After talking to the family, the detective went outside for some fresh air. Something about this case bothered him. Too many inconsistencies, too many things left unsaid. He called the morgue and asked them to expedite the autopsy. Doc, I need the results as soon as possible. Do you suspect something? Asked medical examiner Dr. Kevin Wright. I don't know yet, but the family is acting strange. Torres also decided to talk to Dr. Clinton. If the girl was really distressed and planning to say something, the psychologist might know the details. Returning to the house, the detective found Gareth cleaning his daughter's room. Mr. Hale, what are you doing? Cleaning up. Grace can't see the mess. But Torres remembered that the room had been quite tidy that morning. What mess? Gareth pointed to the trash can, where the fragments of something electronic lay. Erica broke her phone. Last night. How did she break it? She dropped it when she went to bed. Torres took out his gloves and examined the pieces. The phone was badly damaged, as if it had been thrown with force or hit with something heavy. Mr. Hale, I must ask you not to touch anything in your daughter's room until the investigation is complete. Gareth frowned. What investigation? Erica died of a heart attack. We don't know the cause of death yet, until the autopsy results are in. This is a potential crime scene. The word crime made Gareth tense up. Detective, are you suspecting that someone killed my daughter? I'm not ruling anything out. Torres left the Hallamans' house with growing suspicions. The father's behavior was strange, too controlled for someone who had just lost a child, and the mother was clearly hiding something. On the way to the station, the detective called Dr. Clinton and arranged a meeting. If Erica really was going to talk about family problems, perhaps the psychologist knew what the girl wanted to say. Meanwhile, the autopsy results could shed light on the true cause of death of the 19-year-old girl who, the day before, had been determined to change her life. The autopsy results came back the next day, earlier than expected. Dr. Kevin Wright called Detective Torres at 7:30 a.m. Michael, you need to come in immediately. What I've found changes everything. Torres arrived at the morgue 20 minutes later. Dr. Wright, a medical examiner with 20 years of experience, looked shaken. Erica Hallaman did not die of a heart attack, he began without preamble. The cause of death is asphyxiation. Strangulation. The detective felt adrenaline rush through his veins. Are you sure? Absolutely. Petechiae in the eyes, characteristic damage to the hyoid bone. Someone blocked her airway for 7 to 8 minutes. Wright showed him the photos. See these scratches on her arms? They're fresh, inflicted shortly before her death. The girl fought back. Is there DNA under her fingernails? Yes. I sent it for analysis. The results will be back tomorrow. But there's something else. The doctor pointed to the victim's neck. These marks are not consistent with strangulation by hands. Most likely a soft object was used, a pillow or cloth. Torres studied the photos. The picture was becoming clear. Someone had deliberately killed Erica Haleman, trying to disguise the crime as a natural death. At 10 a.m., the detective met with Dr. Sarah Clinton in her office. The psychologist was clearly upset by the news of her patient's death. "Detective, I have to tell you, Erica did not die of natural causes," she began bluntly. "How can you be so sure?" "Yesterday, she told me the whole truth about what had been happening in her family for the past 4 years." Dr. Clinton handed the detective a written statement she had prepared immediately after the girl's death. "Erica told me about systematic sexual abuse by her father, which began when she was 15. She planned to go to the police the next day." Torres read the statement, feeling anger rising in his chest. The story was horrific in its details. "Did she mention threats?" he asked. "Yes. Gareth Haleman threatened to harm other children if his daughter told the truth. And at our last meeting, Erica said she feared for her life." "Why didn't you go to the police immediately?" Dr. Clinton lowered her head. "Erica asked for time to talk to her mother. She wanted her family to be prepared. I agreed to wait 1 day. Now I regret that decision." The psychologist also reported that Erica had audio recordings of conversations with her father. She said she had hidden them in a safe place. Perhaps it would be worth searching the house. Torres obtained a search warrant for the Halemans' home by noon. When he arrived with a team of forensic experts, Gareth greeted them with feigned indignation. "This is outrageous. My daughter has just died and you're barging into our home." "Mr. Hale, we have reason to believe that your daughter's death was not natural." Gareth's face paled. "What do you mean?" "The autopsy results show that Erica died of suffocation." Grace, who was standing nearby, let out a muffled cry and fell into a chair. "That's impossible," Gareth said, but his voice was shaking. "Who could have done such a thing?" "That's what we're trying to find out." The search of the house took 3 hours. Forensic investigators found evidence of interest in several places. In Gareth's study, they discovered a computer with a history of visits to dating sites and social networks frequented by local teenagers. But the main find was in Erica's room. Behind a loose board in the wall, a forensic investigator found a small box containing a tape recorder and 4 audio cassettes. Torres played one of the recordings right there on the spot. Erica's voice was barely audible. "Daddy, please don't." "I don't want to." A male voice, undoubtedly Gareth's. "You know we're special. No one will understand our connection. It hurts. It will pass. You love Daddy, don't you?" Torres turned off the recording. He had heard enough. When the detective returned to the living room, Gareth was sitting on the sofa next to his wife. But now there was a noticeable distance between them. "Mr. Hale, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Erica Hale." Gareth jumped up. "This is crazy. I loved my daughter. We have physical evidence and a motive." "What motive?" Torres looked at Grace, who was sitting with her head in her hands. "Your daughter was going to go to the police to report that you had been forcing her to have sex for the past 4 years. Grace raised her head, looking at her husband in horror. "My God, is it true?" Gareth remained silent, but his silence spoke louder than any words. "We found audio recordings," Torres added. "Your voice, your words." At that moment, something broke inside Gareth. His shoulders slumped, and he collapsed back onto the sofa. "I didn't want to kill her," he whispered. "But she was going to ruin everything. My business, my reputation, my family. I couldn't let that happen." Grace looked at her husband as if she were seeing him for the first time. "You killed our daughter? Our little girl?" "She wasn't little. She was 19. When did it begin? When did you first—" Grace's voice broke before she could finish. "She was 15, Gareth answered quietly. But she understood. "We had a special connection." Grace shot to her feet and struck her husband across the face. "You hurt our child, and then you took her life." Torres handcuffed Gareth. "Gareth Hale, You are under arrest for first-degree murder and multiple counts of sexual assault of a minor." When Gareth was taken away, Grace was left alone in a house that no longer felt like home. Detective Torres lingered to talk to her. "Mrs. Hale, I know this is hard." "I should have known," Grace interrupted. "I should have protected her." Criminals like this are very skilled at hiding the truth. "Don't blame yourself. She tried to tell me these past few months, but I was too scared to listen." Grace looked at the photo on the mantelpiece, their family on vacation last year. Erica stood between her parents, but now Grace saw what she had missed then: her daughter's forced smile, the tension in her posture. "She suffered for years, and I did nothing. You didn't know. I knew something was wrong, but I was a coward. I was afraid of destroying the family." Grace laughed bitterly. And in the end, the family was destroyed anyway. The DNA test results came back 2 days later, confirming that the skin under Erica's fingernails belonged to Gareth. Together with the audio recordings and Dr. Clinton's testimony, the evidence was irrefutable. Gareth Haliman confessed to the murder of his daughter and numerous incidents of sexual assault. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The news shocked Bellwood. The man whom everyone respected turned out to be a monster, hiding behind the mask of a model family man. The construction company, Hale Man Construction, closed, and clients terminated their contracts. Grace sold the house on Maple Street and moved to another state to live with her sister. Before leaving, she visited her daughter's grave in the city cemetery. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, kneeling by the headstone. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." Dr. Sarah Clinton blamed herself for a long time for not insisting that she go to the police immediately. She started a support group for victims of domestic violence in memory of Erica. Detective Torres closed the case, but it haunted him for months. Every time he drove past 1247 Maple Street, he thought of the girl who had found the strength to tell the truth, but was killed the day before justice could prevail. Erica Haliman became a symbol of courage for those who suffer in silence. Her story reminded the residents of Bellwood that unimaginable horror can lurk behind the facade of a happy family, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters live in our own homes. Reverend Wilson dedicated a special service to Erica's memory at St. Matthew's Church. "She died defending the truth," he said in his sermon. "May her courage inspire us never to turn a blind eye to the suffering of our loved ones." Thus ended the story of a family that seemed to embody the American dream, but turned out to be a nightmare for an innocent girl whose only crime was to be born the daughter of a monster.